all the tests. So you read about people who have 180 IQs, and I'm thinking, I don't know where that came from. Supposedly up to 160 you can get. As I said, I have never gotten that. Just to remind you, I think people have an overblown idea of IQs and what they are or not. 70 to 79 is borderline. Below that, we used to call them retarded. That's now politically incorrect, so I didn't say that. 80 to 90 is called average, low average, excuse me. 90 to 109 is an average IQ. 110 to 119 is considered high average. 120 is considered superior. The only way connection I can make with that is good schools. I hate that term, but I'll use it anyway. Good colleges are looking for 120 IQ if you're going to go to a good college. 130 is considered very superior. It is what the your public school system wants you to get into the gifted program. And here's a problem. I can give you the names of 3 psychologists that if you want your child to get into the gifted program, take them right there, because they will get in. I do not think it's fair for the child, I don't think it's fair for the teacher, and I think it's a shame. But that will happen. So that's one of the negative things that are happening. I did mention before, and I'll go back to, some parents are very reluctant. Teachers will say, this child is not working up to his capacity, or what we believe to be his capacity. This child can do math like a whiz, but his reading is not very good. Please have your child tested. And that's why they come to me, to get tested. And so I do this complete battery of testing. What I found was that parents were so anxious about it, this is a little sales talk, I did write a booklet called The Pocketbook of Practical, no, that's the wrong one. The Lowdown of Learning Disabilities. What to look for and what to do. I even made money selling this one, that was good. Then I wrote one called The Pocketbook of Practical Parenting, or Where Did All the Playpens Go? I sold it to a lot of grandparents. I obviously are not in tune, or I'm in tune all right, but I am not in quite agreement with all the common day practices with modern parenting. So that book did not make money. Nevertheless, I enjoyed writing it. By the way, if we run out of time and you will have extra questions, I do have my card up here, and you can also call me, and we can argue about some of the things that you think I'm saying that you don't agree with. I'm going to talk about ADD, and I'm going to talk about verbiage, terms we're using for things right now which kind of irritate me. I also want to mention that for the younger children, what you can do, if I say you can't have an IQ, what else can you do? You can have what is called a developmental screening test. And I put together some tests that I use for that, and a child at 3 or 4 can come to my office, takes maybe 45 minutes, and I do 3 things. I do the Dallas Preschool Screening Test, where I hop, we skip, we jump, we do a lot of things of that sort. They have to recite numbers and do different things of that sort. Then I do the Peabody Picture Vocabulary Test. There are so many children coming into our town from Uruguay or wherever, and their language, they do not have English language. People won't believe that they don't understand when they say get in line or sit down, the teacher's all in a swivet, because they don't have enough English. And so a lot of times just putting them in a good kindergarten class will solve it. They will learn it just naturally. But I do that just to find out where their English language is. Also, that visual motor test that you're looking at, the BERI, I use also. And that gives me an idea just where they are. Let's say the child is 3 years and 5 months, and he scores 3 years, 5 months on all the developmental issues, which would be reasoning and number concepts, remembering how well a child understands and remembers what he hears, color identification, visual matching abilities, measure of receptive and expressive language, and fine and gross motor skills. I still can skip and hop because I have to do that, to teach that. But anyway, so you can do this. If they come, their scores are fine, that's good. But let's say a child is 4 years, 5 months, and some of the scores are lower than that. Then I'm going to say, this is something we should look at. But let's not leap at it right now. He may still be developing. And I will say to them, please bring your child back in 4 months, 5 months, and we'll redo it. It's like going to the doctor. He gets a bottom line. If the child comes back and all of a sudden those scores are up right where they should be, we say, lovely, moving right along, things are fine. If they're not, this is when you get into early intervention. And there are a lot of new interventions they're doing, either with computers, without computers, but a lot of things you can do to help children early on, and particularly with language. If they're having trouble with language in school, and I don't mean translating, I mean just a language. By the way, usually children who have trouble with language, it's pervasive in all languages. It's not just they're good in Spanish because they were Spanish speakers and then they're not learning English well. Usually the parent who will say to me, oh, he had trouble with Spanish also because I've been testing him in English. So that's usually a pervasive thing. And you can get them into some language programs or some ways to help them quickly. Okay, I've covered all the things I think that I meant to cover, even in this mess I have up here.
We're testing you.
That reminds me of I being tested. One of the reasons I stay doing this is I had a girl referred to me from a very good high school here, and her admissions counselor called and she said, I really feel like this school has let this girl down. She was a scholarship student at the school. She had gotten excellent grades, but she had killed herself doing it. Her parents were talking about being late every single night. It was really, really hard for her. She couldn't do too many other activities because she was working. And she said, she brought me her essay. And now you know that you'll have to write essays to get into college now. So she brought it to this admissions woman, and she said, I looked at it and I thought, what is going on here? Some of her ideas are good, but it's a mishmash. And she said, I just am afraid for this girl when she gets into college. Would you be willing to test her? I said, I'd love to. I listened to that particular thing of the things not being in order because I happen to have a son who is very smart. I can say that because he is adopted. His IQ is certainly higher than mine, and my husband won't admit that he's higher than his, but that's another story. But Gregory Maynard could not sequence anything. I don't think he knew how to sequence the days of the week until third grade. It's still pervasive in his life. He needs someone who sort of organizes him. Luckily, he has a good wife who does that. But that's one particular thing that's not looked for a lot in testing. And I thought when she said this to me, and one of the things that gripes me is that they change the IQ test. Every 4 years they make you buy a new one. That's because they get a lot of money. It costs $1,500 to buy one of those things. And they don't improve the tests all the time, and you can quote me. They took out several of the tests in this present IQ test that I liked, several of the subtests. One was a test for sequencing, where you had pictures, you put them in a row, and it told a story that made sense if you put it in the correct way. This little girl, this young woman could not do it at all. And I gave her several other tests to test her sequencing. Otherwise, she really was smart, but she was working too hard. She needs to go to a college that has an area that has a resource room, a place where she can get some help. Brown University, by the way, was one of the first that ever decided that people learn differently, and indeed we need to be able to accommodate them. So she could get accommodations, and she would need accommodations on tests because it would take her longer to figure out how to put it in order. That was a wonderful thing to do. I mean, I got a thank you note from her. She said, I now know what's wrong with me. I didn't know. And that's part of what the testing does too for you. Even for someone who is 10, if they know that they have something, like I can't spell. If you know it, you deal with it. If you don't know it and you keep doing things and it's hard and you don't know why, then it just makes you angry, frustrated, etc. This young woman, it was just one of the nicer things I've ever done because I really got the nice comments from her, and I'm sure she'll get into a good school, and I hope she gets into one that will give her some help. And now she knows what's going on. Okay. Words change as we go through it. I'm almost done. And then you can ask me questions or go on to your jobs if they're lost. One of the things that I have found, being in testing for a number of years, is that things change. Names change. In my opinion, learning disabilities, I don't even like that term actually. I like to use the word interferences. Disability conjures up some terrible thing, and that's why parents get scared of it.